Thanks for checking another episode of Rekt Radio. Today we have a really good discussion with Rex Hygate. And this touches on an important issue that everyone needs to understand when it comes to how you invest in crypto. People jump into many DeFi projects not fully having a complete understanding of a project, who's behind it, the devs, what's going on, and what the security risks are. So invited Rex on today because he's eminently qualified to talk about this, and he comes from an area that is completely laden with regulations and understandings of security protocols, aerospace. So Rex, how are you doing today? Welcome on the show.
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you, Rob. It's just great to be here.
You know, Rex, there's so many millions of wallet addresses and people that are in the space and trying to eke out a limited partnership token earnings or stake their Ethereum or DAI onto a platform. What do you think it is that people don't understand about how vulnerable a lot of these DeFi platforms actually are?
Well, there's a lot of difference out there, and there are protocols that spend an awful lot of time on security, safety, and people on it, they time on it, and they show the safety that's there is reflected. And then there's other groups that are just going in quick, and they're just trying to get their token out there, get the token to go up, and grab some yield. And then so you have both, and it's a permissionless environment. Everybody can come in, can't stop any of it. What we're trying to do is to come up with a consistent set of functionally standards that we measure against. So you end up with a score, a color-coded score from 0 to 100. Green is good, red is bad. That basically people can look at and say, this is what you should invest in, or this is what the risk is.
It seems like a lot of people don't have that hunger and are comfortable to invest in projects. They say this is just a moonshot. It may go big, but they don't have the thirst. Like, where's the verified code? Who are the backers beyond just a crypto kitty representing the executive team? Does it seem like there's a push towards people wanting more information, and is there more of an interest in the guides that you're putting out there, like a thirst for that transparency?
It varies. Once again, it's a permissionless environment, so everybody can come in. So you'll have all of the opinions. Clearly, there are a lot of people who want information, clear, comparable information. There's a lot of finance people that are starting to get in there, and they're very clear on data requirements. And at the moment, they're not able to give data the way traditional finance is getting better, and the protocols are getting better. But at the same time, there's a lot that aren't great. And this is why we've got 170 protocols on our website right now, 7 different chains, and some chains the averages just, and other chains the averages are just high, and it varies. High scores to scores on our site. So it's you will have all kinds, and you invest where you want to invest.
Just from a security standpoint, I was amazed over the last few months, like with Thorchain get exploited, and then even the $130 million exploit that just happened, and these are top platforms that will give bug bounties, and it seems like have some sort of standards. And if you're a DeFi company, what do you think the best way to go to provide that security coverage for your platform? What do you look for to give them a green light?
Well, okay. So for us, when you invest, you're investing in software. So our perspective, as you mentioned, I'm an aerospace guy, avionics software. So I look at how was the software, how careful were they in the process. People are careful. They leave things behind. They leave tests behind, leave documentation, because be careful, you generate all this stuff. So a big thing, what we measure is transparency. And if you're a third party and you want to invest in something and you don't know these guys, You have absolutely no regulatory cover whatsoever. How do you trust them? Trust them by, I can see their software, and their software says that they do this, and anybody can audit the software to double check them. Therefore, I trust them. Now, if you're a protocol that hides everything, then it's just we call a brick ball. Put your money into the other side of the brick ball, you drop it. They say you come back tomorrow and give you more. That's what you're investing in. There's no transparency. That's what you're investing in, and all the words around it mean nothing. But if there's transparency, if you can see the code, if you can verify what you're doing, then have a basis for trust, and that's what we measure.
I should mention for people that are coming onto the interview that Rex has been in the space for a while, even doing security measures at ETH Berlin in 2018. And you've been in there for a while and knowing a lot of the players. Have you seen the arc in terms of the security behind the platforms always be there? Like, is it innovate and then launch, or are people more careful with these DeFi projects in the past, or because it's so much excitement, are they just jumping to market now faster?
Well, it's part of it is there's limited resources now. So one thing that we're seeing is a lot of the protocols are coming out with key cutter teams that do the website, the smart contracts and everything. They just develop it and then they move on to the next company. Mm-hmm. So that the development all the same, and they get pretty much all the same score, super high score. So you see that because there aren't enough resources, there aren't enough auditors. So back in the early times, there were programs and able to spend more. Now it is just so much, and there's not enough people space. And if you look at, like you mentioned, Shane, just the innovation they were trying, they're so high, and you know they tripped up, but they're learning. And I don't expect, you know, at a very high point on the curve to really exponential. It's not going to be like that forever. And security will come down with that. People don't spend the time, start to fall off. Right now, we're the exponential. So there's just all kinds of stuff in, and that's just the way it is.
It seems like there are at least one platform that they'll look and try to provide insurance for a hack or something along those lines. Do they, is that like a use case that you think could have legs where people use your reports and be able to make a meaningful adjudication of, was this site going to go down over the next 18 months? Or what are your thoughts about the insurance side of things for these platforms?
I think insurance is great. I mean, it costs money, but you get some value on it. I wouldn't say it is completely without risk, but it appears to be working quite well. Now, I have yet to see idea between, and insurance will be that still too young to know the end result there is. But I think insurance will do well, and depending on how the actual insurance is done, the algorithm that they use will measure whether or not they use a score like ours. So with Nexus, where they have bonding curve algorithm sort of automatic on there, I'm not an input into that, and they can I can be information a buyer, but it's not the algorithm. There are other protocols, other insurance, not all released yet, so I won't say, that are looking at, they're making their evaluations, and they're using my scores as inputs to that evaluation. But they're using their own internal process to come up with this point. So I think insurance is great, and it's evolving. Part of it.
What are your thoughts on bug bounties? I know people that are like the best coders that I know, and I'll say like, oh, what do you think about Microsoft's bug bounty, or even these huge FANG companies, their bug bounties? And the response that I get from people, at least in California, is like, I wouldn't get out of bed for what they're offering. It seems like some platforms are having more clarity in terms of what compromises or what would constitute a severe versus a moderate versus a low. Do you think that's Do you think bug bounties are a meaningful way for people that have the cybersecurity skills to be able to offer value to a company, or is it just a way for someone to get some value and not have to take on a full-time cybersecurity professional in your mind?
For me, I think bug bounties are great. The values are going up. Have organizations like Unify, we work with in various security aspects and just trying to do the good guys, and they give the developers confidence actually get them. Because a problem for Unify and organizations that's in there is that they you make the fix and it would be difficult to negotiate to get the big payout. And there was that the extremely negative. They're getting that fixed now, and protocols are also saying the number appears huge, but I can afford it, and it adds value. And so there is a number. I have seen a number areas where disclosure has happened to be helped. So I think it's growing. I think it's a trend. If you're a hacker and you get the money through bug bounty, it's legal money. So you don't have all of the problem of trying to get the money out, which I've been told is difficult. I mean, I'm not an expert at that. There's a number of the auditors, and I have friends that some of themselves don't do audits. We refuse. But anyway, I think for developers that find problems, I think that bug bounties are great. And we score bug bounties now as part of.
Yeah, it seems like you've done years of these hackathons, and like a lot of the people, the ethical hackers. And
I've met
do a lot of the blockchain people have? Is it like a Venn diagram with blockchain and cybersecurity people interested in the same types of things, or is it cybersecurity stick to what they know, or what's the interplay between the disciplines?
Certainly, for cyber people coming in, and they have things to contribute. Blockchain is complicated. It allows a lot of specials. I mean, sometimes if you like the cream have an awful lot of finance in learning how to multiply the various tokens in order to suddenly you had 3 billion of assets on there, and you could take out any of the loan, you could take out any loan. So there's a lot of specialization, and I think there's people in cyber and other people.
Do you think flash loans were a net positive or a net negative for a lot of these platforms?
I've had a number of discussions. I mean, flash loans are a net positive. There's no doubt. They have an immense regular use case, and they're immense. They're one of the greatest innovations of DeFi. However, flash loan protection on things like and such, it has a lot of value. And I'm actually digging into this with respect to Cream, and I don't say anything else. I think flash loans are good, but flash loan protection, and we're getting better at so like reentrancy now is a solvable problem. Doesn't mean that can't be sloppy. I know, and they found on it, but reentrancy now is a solvable software. So I think you will see flash loan as a solvable problem. So the point is, you want a flash loan to solve, then like in this case, all the software in the case of the latest software exactly as it anticipated. It wasn't a software error. It was an unintended use of the software.
Yeah, I like your perspective and positive spin on that. It's innovation has both sides of the blade.
Yeah, and we're building, but we're building something that's wonderful, and it's immensely efficient, and it's going to be an awkward. It's very.
I was scrolling through the DeFi Safety Telegram, and people are talking about a number of different topics and different platforms and figuring out. I saw the discussions are about DAOs, multi-sigs. What are people talking about over the last few months when it comes to just DeFi in general that you're seeing?
Well, now it's all about the other chains. We were just Binance and Poly and Ethereum, and now trying to get in the other chains, and we're going to be increasing like at a certain chain ratings, typical thing, but we have to do it because the security aspects of all chains. So we're developing that. Talk any specifics because we haven't finished it yet, but it is definitely something that's in there. And investors sort of, like together on Poly as safe as it is out there. And the answer isn't yes, but you have to be very careful how you do that. So that is an area of react. But for the past few months, it's been about chains, Avalanche, and CeeLo. We just did our first one on CeeLo. So and the different chains have different uses. Like CeeLo, it's lonely, so which is great, and that facilitates an awful lot of content. So anyway, that's what we've been doing.
On the Telegram, I also see that you have said like certain protocols are mature protocols. In your eyes, if a protocol is mature, it's had time to have things figured out, would you generally, as a rule of thumb, stay away from like the newer protocols because they're trying to work things out? Or what are your thoughts on the length of time being a good determinant of how strong a chain is?
So we did we did an analysis recently on because we've got 170 views. Got 170 scores over 16 months. So we sat back and said, between our score and a hack, how does it work? Mm-hmm. So one thing we got, if your score is over 80%, chance of a bad hack is quite small. And a lot of the time, hacks are so that's great. And that includes cream, that calculation. But if you look at the score, there are hacks, but then the hacks, they generally happen in 3 to 6 months. So yes, after a has been mature, then it's okay, but you have to be careful there because cream is immature. Started off scored, sat back and said we've got to do the. They did the work. They got a better score, but then they brought in advanced financial primitives that enable all of the software and all of the that they had fine before, but they added this new primitive, and suddenly the gap entered. You look at Earn with their V1 hack. All they did is they said, we've got our V1 and we've got the V2, and they're totally separate. So the user has to go together. So we want people to be safer. So we'll get rid of the 5% referral fee. It sounds trivial. That opened the door. So it's extremely difficult to really predict all of these things. However, the people who take security seriously are generally safer. And that's pretty much what.
It seems like there's such an interest here and need that it may shake out that just like for equities from moods and pours, or having like big agencies that'll rate a platform is needed. And like from an authoritative source that you have, do you see your decision to not take money, in form of advertisement and keep your hands clean as a one that the direction that is necessary to going into the future? And do you see like a few organizations like yourself working with down the road, like Aave or Compound, to be able to give them like a Moody and Poor stamp, like AAA? Or how do you see the relation between you and the actual platforms?
So our idea, first of all, 3 pillars: independence, objective, and transparency. So independent, we don't take money for reviews, for education. We don't offer consulting services. So, and the idea is get selling our data, so to speak. So yes, we want to be these. I'm sure there will be other people who are doing it, and we'll see how useful certainly third parties, investors, trustable party to be able to measure stuff. That's what we're trying to start. And that's our, I think, yes, the industry needs it. I mean, when we did our seed raise, a lot of our investment came from founders, and their attitude was the industry needs stuff like this, so we'll help. So I think, you know, and so much, we're so young, so many things is can all boats rise.
So if you're looking into a new platform, you know, like I did, and that's how I found out even before the conference about your site. If I'm going onto a DeFi platform and I don't know much about it, would you advise going to your site, reading to see what your insights are, and then like proceeding with caution? Or how do you suggest that someone that says, I see this DeFi site, it looks good, people that I follow on Twitter like it, I'm interested in it, and then I go to your site, and then what? I can get like your perspective in terms of if they're checking the boxes, right?
You'll get a score. Mm-hmm. All right, so I think if you're looking at a site, DeFi Safety should be in your list of short things. If the site's listed, then great. If it isn't, then here's my sort of playbook. Find the smart contracts. If they're hiding them, don't touch it. Look at the GitHub. How active? If it just has like 5 transactions in it, 5 commits, then it was something that was done fully privately and they just dumped it on. Then a lot is hidden, and so it doesn't mean that they're bad, it just means you've got to be a bit careful. And then look, documentation, tests, look at the audit, did the audit. So this type of things, and generally what you're looking at, somebody is, I'm there for the future. I'm setting the bedrocks that I build on, documenting my stuff clearly. I want people to tell me it's that kind of, they really have devs behind it. That's the kind of impression. And look at the breadcrumbs that devs who really leave behind. For us, and just for us, we don't look at TVL, tokenomics, we look at what it says. These are not that they're not valuable things, we don't. And we just look at the in order to explore.
Those breadcrumbs so easily are swept under the rug, and you guys,
yeah, but they're there. And if they're not there, then once again, you're ending up into the whole little scenario. That's the way you invest. That's fine, but understand the risk that you have.
Do you think it's important, just as a last question, that people that invest in DeFi have at least some technical understanding? Or do you think that if you, through your website, can you provide a little bit of that guidance? It seems like it's very user-friendly and you explain things in a very logical way, even for a lay person that's not technically minded.
Thank you. That is definitely the impression. So I appreciate that. We hope it will be in there. Of course, people will be investing in tech, and we don't want to close it off that. It certainly helps if you're in software, you know. So we want our site. It's just one part of the puzzle, and we gave Cream in '83, and we got hacked badly. So we are not. It's a very young thing, and you have to go like the one adage of only investment. I think is said because so much at the beginning. But there's money to be made, and there's a lot to be.
Rex, I really appreciate you being on the show, and we're all looking forward to your time to talk on the main stage on November 2nd.
Stage, yes.
No, that'll be great.
At 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 Pacific. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. We'll touch base when we go in person again, and I appreciate you accommodating the virtual thing through this pandemic. And
yes.
Everyone remember to go to the website. It's a hugely valuable resource. You know, DeFi Safety, in my experience, you bookmark it, and it's a trusted resource that you need to go to before Nexus, before all these platforms. It's a good starting point. So Rex,
thank you
again, thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure.
Have a good day.